All right, everybody, we are back again with another episode of the Hearthstone Meta Hype, and I'm here with Ecor. Ecor, what are we talking about today?
We're going to be talking about some of the new cards from the new expansion. We're going to talk about specifically the two new mechanics, the landmark kind of cards that'll last for a couple of turns, and the new keyword Honorable Kill.
Yes, that's what we got going on. And if you haven't seen it already, make sure you get on over to Ecor's channel and see the first half of this where we talk about individual cards. So let's get into this now. What we have is the new keyword, which is called Honorable Kill. It was funny, when I was doing the reviews of the card First Impressions, I started doing this first. Then I realized I get to the one mana card that was Gnome Private, and I see Honorable Kill, gain +2 attack. I was like, uh-oh, I think I better go back and look at what Honorable Kill is first, because I just wanted to do them without seeing them and just kind of off the top of the head, my first impressions. But right away, I knew exactly what it was, is that if you kill a minion exactly its health, you do what's called an Honorable Kill, and then it gives you this +2 attack or some kind of effect or buff on the cards, it seems to be. What are your thoughts on this Honorable Kill mechanic?
I think it's an interesting mechanic. I think it's a little boring, but also how much can you really do in a game like Hearthstone where you can't really interact with the opponent? Like, let's just say you're playing a different game like Legends of Runeterra or Magic, where let's just say if you cast this on your opponent's turn, gain an extra effect. Like that, you just don't have that extra layer of depth. I think it's cool. And it'll lead to some cool abilities and combos. I'm assuming one of them we're going to talk about is the Knight Captain. It's a 5-mana 3/3. Battlecry, deal 3 damage. Honorable Kill, gain +3/+3. It's basically like a 5-mana 6/6, deal 3 damage if you exactly kill something, which is pretty cool. But I do also think that it's a little bit boring when compared to some things like Spell Burst, which I thought was a really interesting ability. It triggered specifically when you cast a spell. I think that was a lot more creative, but Honorable Kill's not bad.
Well, it looks very situational. The only thing that I could think of that would really make it, like with the card that you mentioned, that it's actually even possible, is that you would be running some more tempo type decks. I mean, to put down a 5-mana 3/3, that kind of stinks, right? But if you were to somehow be able to have a 5-mana 3/3 on the board that could take out an Honorable Kill on a minion, which is just seems a bit improbable. You would have to maybe use a spell to punch that minion and then, then buff it up. I mean, it's just kind of, I don't know.
This feels clunky, I guess.
Yeah, it just feels really kind of underwhelming. I mean, what we've only seen so far in the meta right now is these two cards that had a buff on the actual health and the attack of minions, and also on the weapon. So there could be maybe you get a spell or something, or gain Divine Shield might happen with an Honorable Kill. Like, there might be things like that. There's other effects that could be added to it. Maybe Wind Fury possibly, might go onto a minion so that I can kill a minion and then punch through and go to the face. It might be something like that. So there's a lot of things that I think they can open up with it, but on first impressions, it's just kind of, I don't know, a little boring. Yeah.
Yeah, I do think that some of the cards are cool, though. Like, I'm not going to say that I necessarily like the design of this card, but Siphon Mana, deal 2 damage, Honorable Kill, or reduce the cost of spells in your hand by 1. Like, I think if Incanter's Flow didn't exist, I'd be more okay with a card like this, right? A situational card that could reduce your mana if you trigger this new keyword. I feel like that's cool, right? But then there's the card like the Knight Captain, which could just feel clunky and sometimes might just end up being a 5-mana 3/3 that does 3 damage. So I think some cards are going to be way better with this ability than others. And then there's also the Hunter Weapon, which is a 2-mana 2/2 Honorable Kill, gain +1/+1, which I think is pretty cool, actually, because this card could scale up as people play bigger and bigger minions. You can kill bigger and bigger minions with this card. I think that it's all pretty cool, but it's also a little bit boring. But I'm excited for it because it's a new expansion, new keyword, new cards. So, I mean, I'm in this honeymoon phase, I guess, where I'm trying to argue for, well, it's not that bad. It's pretty good, actually, if you think about it.
Yeah. Well,
yeah.
Like with the Bloodseeker, though, it doesn't. It seems like, you always have to do 2 damage, Does a hunter have enough health to be able to smash the like a 5/5 and do an honorable kill?
True.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I was thinking of that as well.
So
Probably not.
It's not a bad weapon on its own. 2/2/2 is not bad, but if you happen to honorably kill something, you can then maybe use this to go towards the face on the next turn or whatever.
Yeah.
And whatever, if you lose durability, so be it. It's not bad. You could still run 2 of them if you so choose to, but
yeah,
again, yet to be seen, man. The next cards that we have here that I also thought was pretty interesting. It's like you kind of, when you have first impressions of stuff, you look at something on face value again, you're like, I don't know, it's not so bad. But then all of a sudden that creativity comes in your head, like the deck building type of thing. So the first card that we're going to talk about is Dun Balder Bridge. Is after you summon a minion, give it +2/+2 last 3 turns. And if you look at it just on face value, it's turn 4, do nothing. Can you afford to do that? So I could see this be like not so bad that if you played it on, say, turn 4 or 5, that you could play Crab Rider right after, and you get a card that has a really good effect to do some clears or whatever. So it's really going to be based around the other cards. And until we see other cards, it just looks sort of underwhelming. Maybe Murloc Paladin will be a thing again, because you got some cheap cost minions in there and some need for buff. So who knows?
My only problem with it is, like you said, this is basically like a turn 4 do nothing. And in a game where there's now a new legendary, the Drekthar, that on turn 4 you basically can get 10/10 stats out on the board, or a face hunter where you could aim shot and hit face with all of your minions or something and do 10 damage and set up more damage the next turn. Is doing nothing on turn 4 going to cut it? Unless there's no aggro in the meta, I think that these landmark environmental cards, I don't really know, are going to be very hard. I'm very curious to see what the animation is when they come out. Will it change the game board? That would be really, really cool. I'm just thinking out loud here, but I think that could be super cool. Or maybe it's something that just pops and hovers on the side of the screen, so you're oh, that this is active for the next 3 turns. That could be cool.
Yeah.
But in terms of actually playing the cards, Snowfall Graveyard, it's the 3-mana rogue card that says your death rattles trigger twice. That is, I think, a little bit better because you can play on turn 3, which doesn't feel as bad. Because turn 3, I feel like you can recover from that, right? It's not like they're going to have an insane board or anything. But turn 4, I think at 4 mana is when a lot of the best cards start coming out. Or you can coin a turn 5 or a 5-mana card, which is when really good stuff comes out on turn 4, depending on who's going first or second. So I'm just a little skeptical of the speed of this card. If it were 3 mana, I'd say that this card's a 4 or 5, but because it's 4, I'm putting it at a 3, maybe even lower, out of 5 stars.
You don't necessarily need setup as well, right? Other than putting a minion out on the board. Let's say you put a Death Rattle minion on the board, and then you then put this down,
and then you
now
trigger
your opponent
them
has to
trading in or something. Yeah, this card has so much more potential.
Yeah, I mean, so and also at that point, wow, right? If you see a Death Rattle minion come down, you got to contend with it right away because that Snowfall is coming.
Yeah, and
so it's really just, this is a card that really could loom large in your opponent's deck, if you know what I mean. It's you're oh no, they got 2 or 3 Death Rattle minions up there. I better handle them right now, and because Snowfall Graveyard is coming, and then not only that, it still lasts for 3 turns. So this is right here, top 5, probably top 6 cards right here. If you like a Death Rattle Rogue, this is pretty sick.
I rated it as a 3 out of 5 stars, just because based on what is in the meta right now. What Death Rattle or good cards does Rogue really have for this? I tried making a Death Rattle Rogue deck, and obviously they're going to come out with cards, and I said that I specifically said in my review video, this rating is based off of the cards I know that exist right now. There are very few good death. There's the Ticketmaster, which, by the way, will be rotating out 4 months after this goes live, which gives you some plush bears into your deck, so when you draw them, it summons a 3/3. And then there's Lillian, which is the 4/2 stealth minion. When it dies, summon a 4/2 that just randomly attacks, which can be good in like an aggressive deck. Which are both good cards, but they both cycle out 4 months after this card comes out. And other than that, I couldn't really find any other like good Death Rattle cards to play with my old Death Rattle, because there's a Death Rattle weapon. It's a 4/2 that basically says copy the Death Rattle of a Death Rattle card that died this turn. When this weapon dies, trigger it. So it's like, oh, with that I could try to make a new Death Rattle rogue. And I tried, and I played multiple different versions, and I got a shuffle version to work, but that only worked because I was running like a ton of draw and the shuffle mechanic with a different legendary. There just isn't enough support. But if they do give Death Rattle Rogue, or just Rogue in general, some Death Rattles, or neutral, some good Death Rattles, I think this card could be good. But just based on what I know right now, I put it as a 3 out of 5, just because I don't know what they're going to get.
Well, maybe you'll have that chance for Apothecary Hellbrim to be played, the legendary card that gives the poisons to your hand. Maybe that's the time. And the other card that I thought of right away is there are a lot of cards that you can lower the cost of cards in Rogue as it is right now. And also Baron's Trapper will reduce the cost of Death Rattle cards. You could play something like Burning Blade Acolyte, which would then put
2 5/8s. That would be pretty good, actually. That one, that's probably like one of its strongest combos potentially right now.
Possibly Control Rogue? Are we like looking at a Control Rogue with Death Rattle Control Rogue?
Like a more mid-range, I guess. Yeah, it could be. Yeah. Like people would be forced to kill the 1/1
right
early, which would suck to do, and then they have to deal with the 5/8, or they don't deal with it and run the risk of having it double activated. Like, I think this card has potential. Don't get me wrong. And I think that if it gets a couple good Death Rattle cards that are good on curve with a, like, so it rounds out the curve a little bit more, like a good 4 cost, maybe a good 6 cost, a couple of good 1 and 2s. Like, this could be good.
Yeah.
But right now, I just don't think it has enough. Also, what if people run the new, or not the new, but like the 2/5 3-mana card that says your Death Rattles don't trigger? I literally was playing Death Rattle Hunter, and somebody actually ran that card in their deck. And I was like, wait, what's going on? Why are my Death Rattles not allowed to trigger? Is this a bug? And then I looked and was like, oh, no, this guy just runs a card that perfectly counters me. That sees, that is in, according to Hearthstone Replay, 0.0008% of decks. And yet I'm playing against the one guy in like 10,000 that, or 1,000 that happens to run it. And it was so upsetting. But yeah, maybe that card will be good in the meta if this card becomes super powerful. Maybe you might actually see more of them.
I had the most odd thing happen. I was playing with Shaman, right? Or something, I can't remember exactly, but I needed healing in order to keep myself alive. So I was like, I'm playing against a mage, and I'm like, I got to keep myself alive. So I put down I have the Murloc in my hand that has lifesteal on it, and then gives the weapon, right? So, so I managed to kill that minion with a spell that summons the 3-cost minion, and it happens to summon the minion that doesn't allow Death Rattle to trigger, so I don't get the weapon on the kill.
Because you forgot about it?
No, it actually summoned the random minion that did it.
Oh,
so,
okay.
It was frozen, so I'm like, I gotta kill this. I need the health. You know what I mean? Like, so I'm like, I'll get the weapon and I can then attack the face, which is because of my opponent was down to like six health. You know what I mean? So I'm like, all right, it's possibly it. But it didn't trigger, and I'm like, what?
And you're like, wait. What?
Yeah.
What even is this card? And then you have to like read it. I think that's so funny sometimes, and I have to like read what a card does in the middle of a stream. I'll be like, wait, what just happened? And I like read a card that I had never seen before, even though I've played like 1,000 games this season already. And yeah, I've seen it 0 times.
All right, man. Well, that used to happen when I used to play Cheesemonger, but Cheesemonger kind of became a thing, so those days are over for that card. But having said that, we always have a great time doing this Hearthstone Meta Hype with you guys and sharing our stories and our opinions on the cards. One of the greatest things that I do every week with eCore as far as Hearthstone is concerned. I really enjoy it, and I hope you guys do too. As I always say, stay hype, and we'll see you next week.